Joined by Jim Geraghty, he of the senior political reporter at National Review. My colleague is a contributing columnist at the Washington Post. Jim Geraghty, I just gave Olivia Beavers of Politico a challenge. It's called the Beavers Challenge. To find one Democrat, elected Senate Democrat, who will praise the merits of the majority's decision in the Colorado Supreme Court. Just one who will say on the merits they made a good choice. Do you think I'm going to have to do the robot dance? Because that's the challenge.
Yeah, okay. Like anybody in Capitol Hill or just the Senate?
No,
What's
an
the
elected
parameter?
Senate Democrat has to say, I believe the merits of the court's ruling are auspicious and will be upheld, that they are convincing and persuasive.
Because at the House, you can find somebody who'll say anything.
Yeah,
Let's
doesn't
let's
count. You
let's
can
go
find
over
Adam
those.
Schiff. Yeah.
Hirono, maybe. I'm trying to think of the less sharp knives in the drawer over in the Senate Democratic Caucus.
Sheldon
I
Whitehouse and
think you're correct.
Arona are her best bets, but I don't think they'll go there.
Interesting. I mean, look, I noticed that the Michigan had a court that had ruled the other way. Minnesota, that bastion of right wing jurisprudence, had judged that rejected this argument. Four justices on the Colorado Supreme Court really just went off in a completely different direction, and that is going to have some. Look, it's Dwayne and I were talking before we started this interview. Dwayne says this ought to be 9-0, and I concur. I fear it'll be 7-2 or 6-3. That there are justices who don't want to be perceived as saying, "Well, Trump should be on the ballot, and this is okay." Am I crazy?
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I think that even the Justice Sotomayor and Brown Jackson, they value, and Justice Kagan certainly values her reputation as a legal scholar too much to do this. This is,
Right.
Jim, so you understand where I'm coming from. I've been a lawyer since 1983, been studying the law since 1980, been teaching con law since 1996. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen a Supreme Court at the state level do.
Look, it certainly looks really difficult because they effectively have convicted him of a major crime without a trial, and that's bad, right?
Yes,
That is
bingo.
yeah, that is the crux of this. And I was, as I was saying to Dwayne earlier, if the U.S. if Jack Smith or somebody had wanted to put Donald Trump on trial for leading an insurrection between January 2021 and now, the country would be in a better place. We would have resolved it one way or the other, and you could
Yes.
say, yes, he did, and therefore he is disqualified from the ballot. Or you'd say, nope, he was brought up on those charges, made a legal defense, the jury found the other way, and you would not. But the idea of the Colorado Supreme Court saying, yeah, okay, I think he did commit this crime, and thus he's not allowed on the ballot. And I assume if you're not on the primary ballot, you're not on the general election ballot. So, and to do this, by the way, like we are T-3 weeks from the Iowa caucuses, right? Like
Yeah.
if they're really like again, I think the Supreme Court's going to shake out the way you think it is, Hugh. I'll trust your judgment on that. But if there was any risk that the Supreme Court was going to say, "No, you're right, you can keep them off the ballot," why? Like this is the sort of information the Republican primary ought to have well before they begin the process of nominating their process, particularly when the guy's ahead by 50 or 60 points.
Well, I'm not
This
getting
is
into the
basically
recklessness of it. It is so
yeah,
profoundly reckless and detrimental to democracy. That's a separate category of criticism. This is just dumb because you got
right.
to the heart of the matter. There is an insurrection statute. I had printed it out, but I threw it away. That Jack Smith chose not to charge Donald Trump with because of something called the Brandenburg test that would protect the president's speech on the mall. So he went with this elaborate and I think constitutionally invalid theory of interference with the federal election process, but we haven't gone to trial on that, and we may never go to trial on that because I think that's constitutionally imperfect. But the idea that they can just throw a dart and say, convicted of insurrection, you're out, eh, it's so reckless, but it's just so dumb. So let's go to reckless. I think they guaranteed the nomination of Donald Trump, didn't they?
Well, it was looking pretty high as is. This, when Trump says they're out to get me, this will look like a further evidence of that. Um, and again, Trump says election interference, and he applies it to everything. He applies it to the media. He applies it to all kinds of. But in this case, courts looking at it and saying, "Well, sorry, excuse me, you're not eligible for the presidency. You haven't been put on trial. You haven't been convicted, but we've just decided that. Yeah, that does look like this. I also feel like this is like there are certain issues that are so big. You want your court, if your court has more than one judge on it, you want it to be unanimous, or you want it to be 6-1. You don't want it to be evenly split. I don't know anything about these justices, but my suspicion is
I'm not going to
be
name the majority. I have in my hands, by the way, the dissents of Justice Samore, Justice Birkencotter, and of Justice Boatwright. And they are very, very lengthy, but they all say basically, gosh, what are you people doing? Jim, but I want to ask you, who are the three people who are most upset by this decision in the United States? I know who they are.
Well, I'm going to say one of them probably is Ron DeSantis and or Nikki
That's
Haley,
one.
right?
Nikki Haley is two. Chris Christie is three.
Okay.
Chris Christie.
Hugh, Chris Christie is at 10% or 12% if he's lucky in New Hampshire.
Well, I know, but Chris
very
Christie even criticized this. Let me play you Chris Christie last night, cut number 13.
Well, this came out about, let's say we've been here about 20 minutes, so a half an hour ago. It's a 213-page opinion. It came out while I was in the car. I started to try to read it. Didn't get very far. But let me just say, so I can't comment on the opinion itself because I want to read it first. But what I will say is this. I do not believe Donald Trump should be prevented from being president of the United States by any court. I think he should be prevented from being president of the United States by the voters of this country.
Thank you very much, Governor Christie. So he had to take up his 3 for 3.
Yeah, my only observation, National Review said, Christie, it's time to hang it up if you really want to stop Trump. That's not a reflection on like whether we like Christie or not. I think there's a lot of, there's a lot to like in Chris Christie. It's not a fat joke. I'm not saying there's a lot to like, I'm just observing that he's at 10 to 12%, and Nikki Haley would love to have that 10 to 12%. And I think that 10 to 12% that are voting for Christie are voting for him because he's the most adamantly and directly anti-Trump. And I think those people are more likely to go to Haley than to DeSantis. Also, let's face it, DeSantis is looking way behind in Iowa right now. I don't know if DeSantis will drop out if he loses Iowa badly, but I think it's safe to say, like, if you lose Iowa badly, or by the way, DeSantis has done everything a candidate is supposed to do to win Iowa. He's done the full Grassley, visited all 99 counties. He's gotten the endorsement of Governor Kim Reynolds. He's been running tons of ads. He's been spending plenty. He's doing all the stuff you're supposed to do, and it's not working. And I say this as a DeSantis fan. So I'm just observing that if he doesn't do well in Iowa, it's really tough to see which state things suddenly get a whole lot better for him. And Haley is headed towards the third or fourth contest is South Carolina, her home state. If you lose your home state to somebody, you don't have to leave, but like Rubio left after losing Florida. It's really tough. Your campaign takes really bad damage if you lose your home state.
Jim, I got to ask you a quick question. Can you stay for a second segment, or are you doing carpooling this morning?
I'm not doing carpool. I'm supposed to ride a morning jolt, but that's okay, Hugh.
Okay, I need you for a second. Then you can continue on because I'm going to give you the question right before we go to break, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about it. It's an important question. So, do you want to know the question now? Are you focused?
Yes, I want to prep.
The question is,
yes.
There are 6 people who could be president in 2025. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Chris Christie. There's a 7th who's running but can't be president, Vivek Ramaswamy. So I want you to take those 7 people and during the break, make a list in reverse order of who you would like to move in next door to you. All right, so they're going to move in next door to the Geraghty's. Wherever you live right now, one of those 7 people, actually, they're all looking at the house on the market next door to you. They're all going to move in. Well, they're bidding against each other for the house next door to Casa Geraghty. Which one do you want to get the bid?
No, I want all of them to move in simultaneously, and you have a great reality show.
No, I want one of them's going to get the house, and I want to know in which order you want them to get the house or not get the house. So they're going to bid against it. So during the break, I'm going to give you 3 minutes because this is the ultimate test of presidential politics. What was the show with Tim the Toolman? Home Improvement, right? What was the name of the guy across the fence? Wilson. So I want to know who you want to be Geraghty's Wilson and who do you want to be not Geraghty's Wilson the most? With the Geraghty Wilson test, who do you want of the 7 people who might be president to move in next door to you if the house is for sale, and who do you least want? Jim Geraghty, your answers. You're on mute.
Oh.
Okay, you're back. Go ahead. You're back. That was on our end. Go ahead.
All right. So my first thought, Hugh, is that they're moving in next door. Presumably, the person will be spending the next 4 years living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So they're not really going to be around that much, right? Or am I dealing where they're not winning the presidency and they have to live next to me for the next 4 years?
They're not winning the presidency and they're moving in.
Oh, okay. All right. So they're going to be bitter. They're going to be like kind of surly and angry about their lifelong dream being. Because I was going down the list. I was going to take them in the order you gave me and then just give you an evaluation, and you can kind of rate them, based on my thought. Biden, I actually, Hugh, I don't want to be grim about this, but I see him as a short-term problem. I don't.
Dwayne has the perfect response. Hunter's going to be living with him.
Oh, wait a second. Whoa, well, that's a deal breaker. That's a total deal breaker. You got to lead with that. You didn't say, Biden and Hunter were a package.
Dwayne came up with that. I didn't, but.
All right. It's like Joe and Jill, look, he's settling into his golden years. We've noticed the president's schedule. He doesn't do much before 10 a.m., doesn't do a lot after 4 p.m.
You tell me Hunter's not going to be over there all the time.
Yeah.
Hunter's going to be.
Biden, as much as I wouldn't like living next to him, wouldn't be that much of a problem. He's not playing music loud late, all that kind of stuff. Harris, I would not particularly enjoy, but I've had neighbors that are kind of like Kamala Harris, full of advice. You'd probably go over, you'd say hello, and then they would say, "It is a good day, and the day is good because of the goodness, because of its dayness. And if the day is good, we know that the good is the day." And it turns into this Hallmark card, haiku, reverse poetry. And I think I just nod and smile. And
yeah, you couldn't take the wrongly delivered mail over and just leave it. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I would turn all of them. Trump would be a circus. I probably would not enjoy that. Although I give credit, it probably would involve fun parties. It probably would involve, like for 4 years, it would have a real pain in the neck. Well, the other thing is, Hugh, the complication of Trump living next door. The FBI surveillance van parked out in front of my house all the time to be a pain.
And Secret Service.
Yeah, they're both. There's that. Also, the giant neon gold flashing sign saying Trump on top of the house next door would be a little bit of an eyesore, maybe. Some
Christmas decorations would be over the. There'd be great Christmas decorations.
Christmas decorations would be great. Yes. DeSantis is the one who I think actually, I am, I have one neighbor who I'm just kind of cordial and have that wave one. I have other neighbors who are cool, who had one of the coolest jobs in Washington, but I can't say because I don't want my house to get I have one really cool neighbor. So I think DeSantis would be the easygoing, probably let you borrow. He'd let you borrow the garden tools, but he'd also remind you if you hadn't returned them. He'd probably strikes me as very there's a system, there's a formula. He's very helpful. He's very. Casey would be nice. Casey would probably have us over for cookies and drinks and all kinds of stuff. So that would be great. Christie, I could hang out with very easily. The two nagging exceptions. One, he's a Cowboys fan, and really no one should be subjected to that.
He is a Mets fan, though.
Okay, I can live with that. I'm not, the idea that Christie was a 2-term governor of New Jersey, and he roots for the Cowboys, kind of demonstrates that that even bigger than Trump winning, even bigger than Biden winning, anybody can get elected to any office whatsoever. Christie, I think, would be a lot of fun to hang around with. I do think
he'd be a great neighbor. He'd absolutely be a funny neighbor, and he would lend you stuff, and he wouldn't take much. And Mary Pat's nice.
When he goes off on, the problem is, Hugh, at some point he'd say, "Look, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be level with you. I'm going to be straight. I'm the only guy who's going to tell it to you the way you got to hear it. Springsteen is the greatest of all time, and all the others."
Yeah, that would get old. That would get old.
I'd be like, oh yeah, All right.
And Born to Run would be thundering at 1 o'clock in the morning when he was up too late.
Fine, shame. You were never allowed to make a cameo in the Sopranos, Governor. I get it. Oh, tell me how your beach vacation was. Oh, it wasn't crowded. Oh, okay, all right. Oh, traffic was bad. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Ramaswamy would probably be the one where like he makes my skin crawl. I feel like I'm watching a late.
Wait, you're forgetting. You're forgetting. His wife is a doctor. Everybody wants a doctor next door.
Okay, so if I want to rip into candidates, I generally try to leave, family out of it. As far as I know, Mrs. Ramaswamy is a lovely, wonderful person.
Right, and she's a
Very
doctor. I mean, she saves people on airplanes.
Okay, all right, Howard Dean was a doctor too. Like, Frankenstein was a doctor. Not every doctor is terrific, but
So
Ramaswamy,
he's last?
I just everything. Yeah, is that?
And
did I
Nikki
leave anybody
Haley.
else off?
You left
Oh,
Nikki Haley
Nikki
off.
Haley would be- Yeah. Military family, so I always have to appreciate that. It's not that my folks live in South Carolina and then lived throughout her governorship, and we're very happy with that. So I imagine that would be fine. You listed 6. I'm going to throw out a 7th one, which I'm going to put in like the 1 to 2%. Not saying this is likely. But if no Eagles gets their act together and enough Americans are fed up with the two options of Trump and Biden, I wonder if your neighbor list should include like Phil Manson.
Never. No.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. He must have 15 or 16 dogs. Guy's from West Virginia. Not a chance. Jim Geraghty, always a pleasure.